Kept you waiting, huh?
Hey everybody, and welcome back to another SAC Reviews, where today we are looking at Death Stranding 2 on the beach for the PlayStation 5, with all footage here captured in performance mode. Now, this is going to be a heavily spoiler-free review, with all footage being limited to just the first 3 or so chapters from the game, with 16 chapters in total. But after my rating, I am going to give some more in-depth spoiler thoughts, but I'll be putting up a warning beforehand, so if you just want to enjoy the video and remain spoiler-free, simply click off the video after I've given my rating. This review has taken me a little while to do, but I've been quite busy in my own personal life these past couple of weeks, and I just wanted to make sure that I could complete this game in its entirety, and not only that, but spend several hours with it after the credits had rolled and just enjoy the open world and what game was left on offer after that. From the developers at Kojima Productions, Death Stranding 2 on the Beach is the highly anticipated sequel to 2019's very divisive Death Stranding, taking place approximately 11 months after the events of the first game, with America now fully linked up to the chiral network, and Sam living his best life in isolation with his no longer confined to their jar bridge baby, Lou, which then shows Sam thrown back into the world of portering on a mission to link up all of Mexico to the chiral network, and that's how it starts, and that's all I'm going to say at this point in terms of plot. As anyone who has seen my previous video on Death Stranding 2 knows, this was an incredibly highly anticipated game for me this year, and for many other people, so I don't want to talk too much about it, as it really is a story you need to experience for yourself and form your own opinion on, much like the first game, which, for the record, I would have considered a 5 out of 5 with a Medal of Masterpiece. Having said that, I really am not sure this sequel truly lives up to the first game's legacy. Death Stranding 2, as I said, once again takes Sam on an adventure across the wide open world in hopes of reconnecting the people through the chiral network, which will see you setting off on the most efficient routes or going full Zach Brannigan and just charging in a straight line towards the target regardless of obstacles.
Our path was set by the travel agency.
That's for schoolgirls. Now here's a route with some chest hair.
On your journey, you'll have to fight BTs, mules, and the biggest enemy of them all this time, the environment, which is much more active in this game, with things like earthquakes, sandstorms, rising rivers, with a decent enough variety in locales, including jungles, deserts, snowy mountains, that there's a good enough reason in world as to why Sam doesn't have access to all the tools and equipment he had at the end of the first game, but you unlock them all reasonably quickly in this one. The story, as always, is incredibly Kojima. It is weird, it is out there, and it is beautiful. Much like with all of his games, you'll know almost instantly if this is for you or not, but I will say he does hold on to his weird factor card until the latter half of the game. Gameplay wise, well, what you're looking at on screen right now, this is essentially it. I'm not going to lie to you, there is combat in the game, though many outlets have stated there's a lot more combat in this game than the first, but I'd have to disagree. I'd say they're more or less the exact same level of combat, traversal and stealth all mixed together. Maybe it's just the way that I choose to play these games, but that is a statement I'd have to disagree with. If you're buying this game and didn't like the first one purely because of the extra combat you're hearing about, then don't. This is well and truly the first game, but again, and more in terms of gameplay, if that makes sense. Which, if you're like me and you did enjoy the gameplay loop of the original, you are going to have a good time with this one, as it's still the same, but better. You no longer get stuck on every single pebble when you're driving in the open world, though it can still happen from time to time, just not nearly as much. Things like the changing weather and environmental systems actually force you to engage in some of the other means of traversal, so while you can just brute force your way through an obstacle, you are really making it much more difficult for yourself. The game wants you to place ladders, it wants you to rappel down that mountain with a climbing rope, and with the connection you receive to other players' equipment and materials, you are truly incentivized just as ever to lay the way forward, and not just for yourself, but for those who come after. In terms of visuals and overall performance, it's gotta be said, we finally have a game that truly feels like it's utilising the actual power behind the PS5. Honestly, I haven't felt like I've played a true next-gen game for almost the entirety of this console cycle, but Death Stranding 2 is definitely one of those games. This is possibly the best looking game I've ever played, made with the Decima engine and truly showing that Unreal 5 isn't the only engine studios should be using to make their high-quality visuals for gaming. amazing. I mean, just look at this here, this transition from cutscene to gameplay. Absolutely flawless. Everything looks so good, from the lighting, the character models, the shadows, some of the BTs and the bosses and characters in the game that really got unique and cool designs to them. The performance, however, I did have one consistent issue throughout my 40 to 50 hours in this game so far. While in terms of gameplay, in terms of performance, glitches, all that jazz, it was flawless. I never had a single crash, didn't have a single glitch, the frame rate didn't stutter, not even for 1 second. I never say this, but it was practically perfect. However, the online connectivity, I found myself disconnected and entering offline mode so often in my playthrough that long before the end, I just found myself dealing with it and playing offline. It was really nice whenever I'd log back on and suddenly there were all these new player structures around me, but within 5 to 10 minutes almost every time, it would just disconnect me again. Even after I did manually reconnect, at most I'd get, 30 minutes before I'd disconnect again, so that does need to be mentioned. Outside of that one minor issue though, game runs perfectly, man. We've got a lot of familiar faces returning in this game, but a few new ones as well. Naturally, we've got Norman Reedus as Sam, Troy Baker as Higgs, Leah Seydoux as Fragile, Darren Jacobs as Hartman, all of which give just as good a performance in this game as they did the first. I haven't looked at Norman and not just seen Sam Porter-Bridges for years now. Troy, as much as I think the man is overcast, when he plays characters like Higgs, it's got to be said the man's good at what he does. But let's talk about a couple of the new characters. Elle Fanning as Tomorrow gives a really solid performance. I mean, considering her character's limited use of her voice, especially towards the beginning of the game, she really carries it well and has some truly spectacular action scenes, which, I'm gonna be honest, I got no idea how they mocapped some of that stuff. Shioli Kutsuna, I hope I'm pronouncing that right, who plays Rainey, I'm going to be honest, she was the standout new favourite character for me. She just does not get enough screen time in my opinion. She's so sweet, charming, innocent, stuck in a really nasty situation with these powers that are just bad and she's trying to learn to use them for good. I can't get into her too much, but I think she was truly a standout character and performance in this game. I just wish we got more of her. Luca Marinelli as Neil Varner, absolute stone cold badass. When Kojima said he could see this guy playing a Solid Snake in a movie, I'm not gonna lie, I didn't see it at all, but I mean after this, I reckon the guy could probably pull it off, you know? Everyone really does give it their A-game in this. They bring their all. Marty Roan, who plays George Miller's Tarman, Jonathan Rumi as Dollman. The only ones I really wasn't impressed by, and I'm sorry to say, Alistair Duncan as the President and Deborah Wilson as the Doctor. Don't get me wrong, they're both very confident actors with big careers behind and ahead of them, but I just felt very flat for me, for lack of a better term, in my opinion. Sound design's a difficult one here, as in terms of the in-game sounds, everything works. The sound of the rivers and their currents, the different crunches beneath your feet, whether you're heading through the sand or the snow, the dopamine-inducing pings as you run through every other player's sign along the way. In-game, it's all top-notch, but the actual score is, again in my opinion, a step down from the first game. Composer Ludwig Forsell returns to score this game, this time joined by Woodkid, and I will say before I get into their songs for this game, I really did appreciate the inclusion of Low Roar once again in this game, following the death of their singer and songwriter Ryan Carazia in 2022, as Low Roar's music had such a massive impact on the overall vibe and atmosphere to the world of Death Stranding. So really appreciate their inclusion again here. Getting on with the new though, all of the music in this sequel is fine. It is not bad, it is better than serviceable, but there's no that moment to the score. There's no moment of the swelling of the strings, the sudden vocals coming in, nothing that gives you any of those musical goosebumps that games can give you. None of it's bad, but none of it moves you the same way the first game did. With the exception of the finale, but that would be going into spoiler territory, so I'm going to leave it there. The only thing that I feel is missing from this game is honestly the thing I was most afraid of from the beginning, and that's a reason to exist. Yes, I really enjoyed this game. Yes, I am so happy I get to return to the world which I fell in love with so many years ago. But with the first game having such a perfect that's the end, but it's kind of left open ending, I feel like Kojima really needed to justify telling a full story if he was ever to return to this world. And honestly, by the time the credits rolled, despite my enjoyment of this game, I couldn't help but say to myself, that wasn't as good as the first. I think I was happier and more satisfied where the story left off before, and as a fan, I really don't know if we needed this. I really can't go into my thoughts on this too much without going into spoilers, so I am going to save that till the end, but that's what I feel was missing from this. As good as it is, as fun as it is, as much as I enjoyed it, as much as I'm still having a good time playing it, I still plan on playing it for another 20 to 30 hours to get that platinum, despite the fact I've played it for almost 50 at this point. There isn't enough innovation in either story or gameplay to justify making this sequel, in my opinion. Unless, of course, the plan is to now make a third game, which I do now kind of want. I didn't want a Death Stranding 2. I feel it was left in such a perfect way the player could make their own ending, but leaving things off where this game leaves off, I kind of want a third game now, just for the sake of putting a bow on the world and saying, okay, the end. All in all, Death Stranding 2 is very much the same as the first game in my opinion. Polarizing, but potentially more so this time round. The gameplay loop is easy, simple, and repetitive. If it's something you like, you're going to have a great time with this, but if not, you'll be bored within the first hour and just know it's not really going to change that much. The story is crazy, weird, wild, beautiful, and something that only a madman like Kojima could ever come up with. If you like Kojima's storytelling, this is the perfect game for you, but if you don't, then once again, at no point is this game going to win you over or ever grip you to finish it. But additionally, this time around, you have a fan base. This isn't a new IP anymore. You have a base of people that loved that first game, like me, that now have expectations. We have knowledge of the world and the lore, and we've got questions. It's fine if Kojima wants to return to the world of Death Stranding. I mean, at the end of the day, this is Hideo Kojima's world and his creation. We're just the ones choosing to live in it. But we needed more of a reason to come back to this world, in my opinion. And that's why I'm giving Death Stranding 2 on the beach a 4 out of 5.
Hey, that's pretty good.
So, have you played Death Stranding 2 on the beach yet? How does it compare to the first game in your opinion? Am I being too harsh or too soft on this one? Because it's quite a difficult review to get right for me as a fan. Let me know down in the comments below. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and as always, thanks for watching. Now, on to a few spoiler thoughts and things I want to say, so here's your warning. If you don't want to know anything about this game spoilery, good or bad, come back when you finished it. Cheers, guys. So my main issue with the whole story of this game and the whole needing a reason to return argument is that this time round, the story was way too predictable, and some of it just felt like things happened for the sake of happening and moving the plot forward because, well, the plot needed to move forward. It was almost like a pitch meeting, you know? Wow, the DHV Magellan sure does seem to have issues on the Tarkarans a lot. Yeah, but that's because we need a reason to stop the story dead in its track when it's starting to pick up, so if you can go out and deliver more packages, that'll be great, sir. Oh, right. Anyway, what about this Neil character? I mean, we were able to experience Cliff's backstory as we actually were his BB, and Cliff was able to return because he had such a strong willpower and connection, not only with us for being his BB, but with him being our father, we were able to link up with him, and Sam was able to experience and relive those memories when he plugged in. So what's the connection with Neil this time? Oh, he's the guy that Sam's ex cheated on him with. What? Yeah, you see, Neil had an affair with Sam's partner Lucy, and when Lucy was pregnant, she told Sam it wasn't his child, but it was actually Neil's, and told Neil it was Sam's, and it was actually Sam's. Okay, so Neil thinks it's his child? Had he ever met Sam before? Nope. Never met him, and she straight up tells him to his face that it's not his. In fact, he cares so little about the child, he was willing to happily hand it over to the government to be sacrificed to try and save Lucy's life, despite her wishes as she's dying to not let them take the baby. So what, wait, okay, so what is the strong connection he has to Sam then that lets him come back and keep haunting him? It can't be the connection to Lou, because it was already established Lou is actually Tomorrow, so why was he stalking Sam and not Tomorrow? Sir, I'm going to need you to get all the way off my back with this. We have Luca Marinelli playing Neil, and I kind of think he looks a little bit like Solid Snake, and I really want to put Solid Snake in this game, okay? You see what I mean? It's just kind of things happen because it needs to, which I get is Kojima's bread and butter, and I know you can normally justify it with him because, you know, just just let it happen, it's the rule of cool. But when you've already established the lore of connections, links, strands, reliving a BB's memories by plugging in, and they're two completely unrelated characters, just having him show up for the sake of it, it just doesn't make any sense, and not in a good way. When you have this ship that can traverse the tar currents and go anywhere in the world in almost an instant, but it's always breaking down conveniently for plot reasons, it just feels lazy and repetitive to me. Like the ship breaking down once or twice, that I could have dealt with that. Yeah, things break down. This thing breaks down all the time. It breaks down several times a chapter. Come on, my guys, fix your ship. And the twists as well, they were all so incredibly obvious this time round. Except for Australia. I avoided almost all marketing for this game, and apparently the fact that the whole game is set in Australia and not Mexico was revealed before the release, but I didn't know about that, so that was a nice little surprise for me at least. Anyway, I already mentioned it, but Tomorrow actually being a grown-up version of Lou, I mean, I don't know about you lot, I called that the split second I saw a character. When the game emphasises a birthmark on Lou's elbow at the very beginning of the game, and then several hours later this mysterious girl shows up in the tar and she's got a bit of cloth wrapped around that same elbow, it's cut a bit on the nose, don't you think? I get it if it's something you want players to figure out themselves, but oh no, there was just no emotion behind it. No oh my god moment at the end when it was revealed. And I mean, you didn't even have the balls, Kojima. You didn't even have the balls to have her call Sam Dad. Not even once. You want to sell the emotion of that moment when the twist is so obvious from the get-go. Have Lou call Sam Dad. That would have inhibited emotion from me and a lot more people than just, hey, yeah, I'm Lou. Alright? No. Die Hard Man actually being Charlie, when you give us a list of characters that can voice the Charlie character at the start, and the game automatically says no to every single one of them until eventually you're forced to pick him, and when he was such an integral part of the first game, Charlie seems to have all of this knowledge of the UCA and what's really happening behind the scenes, and the president is constantly telling you that someone with high-level access is working from the inside and leaking their secrets, and was emphasised at the beginning of the game. Die Hard Man was bitter about his shortest presidency ever. I mean, come on, when he shows up, he literally winks at the screen, breaks the fourth wall, and goes something like, as some of you may have already figured out. I mean, was there even meant to be any surprises or twists in this game by the end of it?
You can't possibly be serious.
Was it really necessary in killing off Deadman? That was probably the most emotional I got throughout this game. When Deadman died, I really had a sad feeling of, oh, I mean, this is sad, but he's going to the beach. He didn't think he had one, and that's all he ever wanted. This is real, beautiful closure for this character. But then he came back again and possessed Heartman, and then he continued to possess Heartman throughout the game. And then he came back as the Red Samurai, and then he came back in the Giant BT. He just kept coming back. He was in the game more than characters like Tarman were. Why bother killing him off if he's just going to be there throughout the whole game anyway? It completely took away all of that emotion you got at the beginning. And while I'm at it, speaking of Tarman, characters like him and Rainey, why were they even here? Rainey was introduced as such a good, cool and likeable character, then she's relegated to 2 cutscenes where she puts out fire with the rain. Tarman, I don't know if he ever even gets out of his chair. Half the time you speak to him, it's him telling you on a phone call for the 100th time, right then Sam, you've played enough of the story now. Go out and deliver some packages for a few hours until we're ready for you to pick up where you left off. There's no need for it. If you're going to introduce these new characters, then please have them serve more of a purpose. We've had time with Hartman, we've had time with Deadman and Fragile. Look, let these new characters shine. And also, Fragile, between her, Lou, and Deadman, that is free. They were dead the whole time until they weren't. Style twists this game throws at you. Deadman dies at the start of the game, only to constantly come back from the dead throughout the game. Lou dies at the beginning of the game, only to come back as a BT baby in the jar almost instantly until the Act 3 part of the game, but at this point Tomorrow has already been introduced and you've probably already figured out that Tomorrow is actually Lou, so she never died either. And Fragile, she's in the entire game until the very end where she dies and everyone says, oh, we all knew, but she told us to keep it a secret. She's actually been dead this entire time. But her spirit died, but her body was slowly catching up. So, what? What? Why bother? Why bother with that? Kojima, does death have any meaning in this world anymore? Do you guys remember the first game? How death meant a freaking void out? The emotion you felt at the finale when Sam couldn't bring himself to kill his sister mother Amelie and instead he had to hug her at the end of the world. The emotion of Lochner and Mama with her baby that was a BT that she couldn't let go of. Crying like a bitch at Sam giving CPR to a dying baby Lou. Death really used to mean something, but at this point, I wouldn't be surprised if everyone just shows up in a third game, just like, yeah, we died, but we walked it off. Higgs is a cool character. I'm always the first person to say, oh, for fuck's sake, other actors exist in the industry. Cast someone other than Troy Baker for once, goddammit. But when you watch performances like Higgs, hell, even I've got to say, you got to give it to the man. There's a reason he gets all the work he does. He knows his craft, dude. But I can't help but feel his character's being built up to be more than it actually deserves to be. But before I get into this, I will say that final boss fight, absolute cinema. The different versions of BB's theme that play in that fight, someone link me that because I can't find it anywhere and it's spellbinding.
Love to see you cut loose, Sam.
That is what I was talking about earlier in the review for the soundtrack, utilising something old. The only goose pimply, oh my god, the feels moment I had was in the finale when they were playing BB's theme, but a different version of it. It was all memberberry based. But the actual fight, man, literally dueling on a mountain with lightning shooting guitars at the end of the world, shirtless, beating each other with the guitars like they're actual axes. That was metal as fuck, and I loved it. It was so cool and so much fun, but there wasn't any closure. There wasn't any climactic emotion to it. It's like Kojima just wants to do the ending of Metal Gear Solid 4 again. But the problem is, Sam and Higgs, they aren't those guys, man. Sam versus Higgs will never be Snake versus Liquid, no matter how much you want it to be, Kojima, especially after just 2 games. I know it sounds like I have just shat all over this game, but I mean it when I say I really did enjoy it. I stand by a 4 out of 5 after getting all of that out because I love the world, I love the gameplay loop, I love the characters, I love everything about this. It just feels so much sloppier and half-assed than the first game. Almost feels like a sequel by committee, despite the fact that it's very clearly a Kojima game. I just think if you take that first game and the second, compare them to each other, with the exception of the naturally tighter gameplay and graphics over 6 years of innovation, there isn't actually a single element of the second game that can match the first. Anyway, thanks for sticking around for my little spoiler rant here. Please try to keep things spoiler-free in the comments, or at least mark your comments with spoilers. Have a good day, guys, and keep on keeping on.